Good afternoon and welcome to our new webinar. Today we are talking about privileged account management, also known as PAM. My name is George Estrada. I'm the CTO of Managed Services, and I'm joined today by Dave Kaufman, VP of Operations for Managed Services. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of privileged access management, privileged account management, and Dave is then going to go and show us a little bit of what it looks like and give us a demo there. And then after that, we'll be opening up the floor for some questions. But before we start, I want to let you know the CWPS is now Red River. The acquisition was announced earlier this fall, and we are all excited with the breadth of resources and offerings that we're going to be able to bring to you. So we look forward to making 1 + 1 = 3. So what is PAM? Put simply, PAM is a function focused on managing powerful accounts that are the prize target of, basically bad guys. What is a privileged account? A privileged account is a user account that has more privileges than ordinary users. These accounts can install or remove software, upgrade operating systems, modify systems, and/or application configurations, and many, many other things. So what is some examples of accounts? Privileged accounts would be local administrative accounts, domain administrative accounts, service accounts, portal accounts. So it's a slew it's a wide array of accounts that have access to some degree or other to make significant changes in an environment or system. So what is driving the PAM adoption? Right out the gate, it would be security. A PAM solution is a sure way to minimize your threat surface. Also compliance. The increase in regulatory compliance standards is placing a lot of pressure on businesses to implement a managed solution around privileged accounts. And one major component of these requirements is auditing capabilities. Finally, automation. Something as simple as disabling a user's access or account when they leave is when manual leaves too much room for error and oftentimes leads to a compromised account. So automating that functionality is very key to a PAM solution. Now, a quick note on the difference between vaulting and a PAM solution. Many of you are familiar with vaulting tools like LastPass. And in short, these are really good, reliable solutions for single users and private use, but they're not designed with the use case of a business, and they certainly don't scale to the needs of a business. Our solution is built on Thycotis Secret Server, and with it, we'll be able to offer you things like integration with your Active Directory, role-based access control, session monitoring, auditing, access control requests, and many more. Now I'm going to pass this over to Dave for a brief demo of our solution, and we'll take it from there.
All right, thanks, George. So I'm logged into our instance here, and one of the ways we like to set it up is on a tiered structure. So we only give access to the folks who actually need it. So in this screen here, I'm logged in as a Tier 3 IT resource. So I have a full directory structure here that I can look at, different networking devices, servers, those type things. But if I flip screens over, that's not the one I want. Let's see here. So here, I'm logged in as a Tier 1 resource. So under that same demo account, there's only one folder that I can see, this server's Tier 1 here. And as the screen I was just on, you saw the social media. So here, we can extend it beyond just your IT resources. So here, I can protect my social media accounts and give those only access to folks that need them. But also restrict folks. So that Tier 3 resource I had up, if we look here, they don't have access to that social. Well, actually, I guess Todd did add it back in there. To the social media. Sorry about that. A few minutes ago, that wasn't there. But the same idea with the Tier 1. We can restrict what folders you have access to, and then technically even underneath that. But we try to group them by folder, just makes it a little bit easier to manage.
So Dave, let me let me ask a couple questions around that too, for some clarity. So what we're really talking about is, I would be able to segment my tier ones and my tier three based on level of experience and access, right? So
That's right.
So one of the things that this allows us to do is, you really start corralling resources and access to resources based on skill sets, right? So a tier one can't accidentally go in and delete a server in Azure or AWS because they wouldn't have access to delete those.
That's right. Yeah, you limit that exposure on that tier basis, and you can, there's always these layers of security, right? So you can have, if you're using best practices of named accounts for your users to log in, you can know who's logging in and doing things, but how far are you taking that down to be able to restrict? Do they actually have access to this device? Am I locking them out of RTPing to a certain server or not? If you're forcing them through a tool like this, you can help control some of that, but we're also recording the session stuff here. So do you have that in your environment? Okay, maybe I'm controlling what those users can get to, but if they do go and do something, do you know what they actually did? If we're recording all that, we know what was done. If they accidentally make a mistake, your senior guys can look and see exactly what was happened there and speed you back to recovery a little faster.
Excellent. And that's vital in a crisis situation.
Yeah, for sure. So let me show you some of the control capability here. So if I'm in as a tier 3 guy here, and I want to hop in to a SSH over to a router or to a firewall in this case.
So I hit this is a network device,
launcher here, right? This is a firewall. So I hit the launcher. It launches a PuTTY SSH session, and notice it's going in. I never see the password to it, and here I am in full enable mode. So I could then go ahead and do whatever I need to do, and it can issue commands. I do like a simple show vir. It'll give me what the output of that is, and I could technically go about doing anything that I needed to do there with all that being captured, which I'll get back to and show you. So I'll exit out of there. Similar type thing with servers. So if I need to connect over to a server again, and see in this instance here, we don't even have the password as an option. So system's very configurable. We could make it so that certain levels of folks could view the password. We can make it so you have to check out credentials and things. I'll show that with the social media account, how that piece works. Or we can just mask it completely in the right situations. So if I hit a launcher here, again, it's gonna run the bootstrapper, launch an RTP connection for us here. All right, I do get the pop-up here showing me that my session's being recorded. So I, as the engineer working, there's an alert.
So that meets some privacy standards.
Me of that, right? So I know what I'm doing here is being recorded. And then again, it's going to log me right in. I never saw the password to get into this thing.
And it seems relatively easy to use, right? I mean, it's very intuitive as long as you're following the steps.
Yeah, we've been using it for a while now, most of this year, and I've been real happy with it so far. Hasn't really presented any challenges. So here, tier 3 demo, so we can see that in the recording. So I'll get out of that. Go ahead and sign out as that user. And then we can't necessarily see it here, but if I go over to the tier 1, we've actually got this one logging in, and this is not it. It's logging in, but not with a restricted admin account for the tier 1. So this could be, maybe you've got like an application admin or something. So we could have them only able to get to certain servers. They can't get to your Active Directory, those high value targets in that way, but they could still get into their application server and get in and do certain functions that they would need to do that way. But again, only getting to what they really want, kind of that zero trust. Let's not trust anybody to touch anything that they don't have a legitimate business reason to touch,
That's fantastic.
So similar idea here. Just put some notes in there so we can see that when we look at the actual recording piece of this.
And so while you're doing that, I know you conducted an extensive research phase to settle on this solution, and Psychotic is a cloud-based solution. What we're talking about. Why the cloud? Why was that?
Nowadays with all of everything's moving to the cloud, right? You got your infrastructure as a service, Google, AWS, Azure, all that, applications, so much of that moving to the cloud. In a lot of instances, you don't really have to be able to connect to your corporate domain to get to your tools any longer. And Psychotic does offer an on-prem service as well as the cloud. But if you have a solution like this in your on-prem and something happens and you lose access to that, you very potentially have a lot of other systems that you would still be able to get to out in the cloud. But if you don't have if all your credentials and everything are tied up on-prem that you can't get to, that could be an issue. Mm-hmm. A lot more redundancy in things. So this is built in the Azure cloud with geo redundancy. We went through we presented a big questionnaire to Psychotic because we've done a lot of cloud work and know a lot about the capabilities of it and all. We wanted to understand how they had architected the system. And we were quite impressed with the way they went about architecting it, the expandability of it, the redundancy, even the testing methodologies they go through as they're doing updates and all. And we were really comfortable with where they went, and it just seemed like the right fit in the way the direction everything's going in the IT world these days.
Excellent. Well, I'm familiar with the work you did, and it was extensive and very thorough, and it's great work.
Took a while to do it, but it was fun work. So here, for instance, is what we're pretending to be a social media account. So we can set, and then we can do this with any secrets, and see anything in here that we need to access that we're protecting is referred to as a secret. So here I'm requiring access permission. So the user can see it, but they can't actually get access. So they do this request, and there's some kind of defaults here. So I could say, all right, give me, I need to access this for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then they have to give you a reason for demo, and then they submit the request. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have approvers that are set up for that can be able to approve those types of requests. Mm-hmm. And there is a little request log here. So if I'm the user and I haven't gotten it back yet, I can see, oh, okay, my thing is still pending. So maybe you need to reach out to that person because they're not paying attention right now. Hey, I sent my request in. Can you go ahead and allow that for me?
And I want to, real quick, this is in this demo, this example, they're requesting for social media access, right?
Right.
Which brings to topic the idea that, here we have a privileged access management solution. This is no longer just in the domain of the IT professional, right? I mean, there are other stakeholders in the organization, in the line of business that have an interest in this, right? Marketing, finance, the operations. Nothing can be more damaging than your social media accounts getting hacked and someone damaging your brand. So this solution really extends into the rest of the outcomes that the business is trying to drive. So that's a really important point to catch.
So once and I'm sorry I'm jumping between the screens here, but I don't want them to time out on me because we do have a 15-minute session timeout on these for security purposes. So I don't want my screens to time out on me, and then we've got to sit here and watch me as I'm trying to get back into the system. So here I'm logged in as an administrator that has those approval capabilities. So under this approval requests, right down here at the bottom is the one that I just made. So it's currently pending. It's given me the reason. I can click into that and view more info. I also get this via email. So if I have my email open, it would come in. And within there, I have an immediate approve. There's 3 or 4 follow-ons that allow for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. So maybe they requested for 30 minutes and I'm going, no, rookie, it's going to take you an hour to get that done. I can go ahead and approve them an hour, not make them have to re-request.
Okay.
Or at the bottom, I can deny. So You can click through an email to be able to do that, or if you're logged in or in the portal here, you can then see that information. So here's the reason that they put in for this, the current status, all that. And then I can put a note in and approve that connection. So now that user would actually be able to get to that. So
And again, all this is logged, right?
all of
So
it's
not only the request,
completely
but the
logged.
approval.
Yep. So now if I go back over as that user, I now to the point where I can actually check it out.
Okay.
So depending on the devices, the different websites and all, with this checkout piece, we can actually rotate passwords after they're used as well. So not such a big deal if we're masking the password in the first case, but sometimes, there may be a website that we can't rotate the password on, or we can't inject the password, but maybe we can still communicate to it where we could rotate it or something, because there are some supported that way. Or maybe it's just a device that it's got a GUI interface to it that we can't inject into, but we can allow the user to check out the password once their period that they asked for on. So if it's been approved for an hour, after that period's up, or once they check it back in, we can rotate that password. So even though they knew it an hour ago, it's useless to them now. So here now I could go ahead and do a checkout, enter a comment on what I'm doing with this again, and it would bring me then to a place where I could launch that piece. Now I use LastPass, so I'm probably gonna have to reload this plugin, but it would then inject the stuff in there for me and I can go in. And that can get to be a whole thing you have to worry about in your environment if you don't have the password save prompts turned off and all that. So there's a discussion we have to have around that. But you can really build it tight. And the best thing of it all, to your being a logged point, is you know what's going on. So if any user that has access to privilege accounts leaves your environment, we can go in, run a report, and see everything they had access to. So you're not having to guess what passwords do I need to go change, or you're not unnecessarily changing passwords that they never accessed because you don't know. Here you have a full audit record of everything they ever touched.
Excellent.
All right, so let me jump back over then back to the admin piece, if I can find it. And let's look at that session monitoring piece, and hopefully those have had time to queue up now. Good, they are. So here is the, these are, 1207. Okay, so here is the, where I connected in by SSH to a firewall. So we bring this guy up, and it's got here on the left side, let's see if I can get this right. Let's collapse that so it looks a little better. So here are the commands that I put in, and then here is the actual recording of the session. So if I launch that, we'll see everything that took place during that. It'll show us all the login. I can get that up to full screen and all. So there we are in the enable mode as we were talking. We'll see me issue that show ver. So here's that point where if somebody did something accidentally, the senior resource can sit down, look at it, and see exactly what transpired in that.
And this can be exported, right? This video?
This can. So there's a download right here. We can download this. We can even do, so here there's a entire SSH log. So here is everything, any entries, however long that session is that's going on, it's going to capture all that information for us.
Which this is very important when you're dealing with compliance and auditing and anything that an investigation on something where there might be some attribution that needs to be made. There's both a video and a text record of what took place.
Right, and then here's the RTP session into the server that we did. So let's see if I can center this up. Similar idea. It's recording right from the launching of the RTP session through the login, and then everything going on the screen here. I'll blow that up so we can see it a little bit better. But everything I did during the session's all captured there. So we've got it for those compliance reasons, as well as fallback in event of whoops, somebody did something they shouldn't have done, maliciously or intentionally, or accidentally. We can actually see exactly what transpired there and go about taking care of it. I guess I was talking too much here, and at some point, there we go. There's my typing and all. So yeah, it's capturing all that. So all those individual sessions, all the secret accessing, all that's fully logged in the system. And we can go in and view those by user to see what particular users did. We can look at it by the secret and see who all's touched that secret. Lots of different ways to view it and know what's been going on in the system.
And you know, the ease of use, what does the implementation of something like this look like?
So it requires that we put what's called a distributed engine. So let me back up a second. One of the major deciding factors for us in the product that we chose was the architecture. Many of them require a constant connection between the database and the endpoints, meaning VPN in our instance. As an MSP, we're not comfortable having nailed up VPNs between us and our clients. We never have been. Way back many years ago when we first got into the business, we had that because that was the only way you could operate and be able to connect to people's environments. But with technology, we've grown past that many years ago, and so we don't have to do that any longer. And we didn't want to go.
And for those out there that might not understand why, there are risks associated with
Sure. I mean, if it's a connection. So if I've got a connection to customer A and customer B, and customer B gets compromised, guess what? They can go through me to get to customer A. It's just way too much risk that we're not interested in, and we didn't want to go backwards in time and be back in that situation. And the Thycotic solution did not require VPNs. We put what's called a distributed engine in the environment at the customer site, and that becomes almost, you can think of like a jump box, but it's the communication method back out to the cloud that proxies these connections. So if I need to connect to a device in their environment as the MSP, I click on it, and that gets established from the distributed engine through the cloud to me. Or obviously, if I'm an internal user, it's just immediate right across, because we do extend this out to our customers. We can offer them where their staff can log in and use the same access and all that we do. But that brokers the connection and keeps that VPN constant connection thing out of the equation. Okay,
excellent. And so just to circle back, so deployment wise, it's something relatively,
Yeah, so we do, there's a methodology to it. Like one of the major things is we go in and we run a discovery on Active Directory. So that's going to go out and look for all your privileged accounts in there. Some people don't actually know what they all are. Some run a very tight ship and they do know, but more times than not, that's not what we find in places. So it's going to go out and it's going to find all the privileged accounts, all the groups that have privileged access, identify those, and that's going to be part of the onboarding discussion of, here's what we found. Are all these legitimate? Do you actually need these? If not, let's fix the ones that we don't. Do these people really need admin level access just to get to one thing? Let's replace that with something like Secret Server. Let's lessen that risk and only give them what they actually need access to. And then we go about discovering all the devices, everything like that, and then build out that architecture like we saw within the system here, kind of those folders of different device structures and all, and then only just granting people really only the access that they need to certain things.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're a business person, not necessarily day-to-day IT, but you're like the COO or CFO, and you really don't know what should be locked down or secured, that consultation we would offer best practices.
Absolutely,
also, right?
Yeah, we'll walk through that stuff, and we see lots of different things out there. So there's different approaches, multiple ways to skin cats always. So we can offer a few different advice points that you can then figure out what's the right thing for your organization.
Great. So do we have any questions at this moment?
We do. We have a couple of questions. The first one is, are there any other security controls or technology integrations you would recommend implementing along with this?
All of them, if you're going to recommendations. So, security is it's the defense in depth thing, right? The layered approach. We have some bundles that we put in environments that we think's a real easy way to bring security into your environments, like with DNS protection with Cisco Umbrella that we do. Obviously, end user training, security awareness training and all is a huge one. that a lot of customers still aren't doing, but it's one of the fastest ways to have an impact with your security dollar, because the biggest target of the bad guys are the end users. And we see this, if you don't even have to follow the trade mags to see it. It's in regular publications all the time of the compromises that happen, or people sending money when they weren't supposed to, and all these different things. There's next generation endpoint protections and things you can do, even beyond your normal firewalls and things, but there's the next gen firewalls that are application aware and can do different stuff. So there's many different layers that you can spend in security, but you really do have to do a layered approach. And then, no matter how many layers you have, there's still no guarantee that you're completely safe. It's a constant evolution out there, but the bad guys trying every possible vector to get at you and your data and your users. We even see it in governments and all that, and we even see governments going after private businesses and things. And you can fund a lot of effort if you're a government, so that's pretty hard to defend against if you're just a small company. So you absolutely want to look at those in that defense in-depth model and spend as you can on that, and pick off the ones that have the biggest impact, but try and get eventually as many of those layered in as you can, because each layer of that is a little bit closer to prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, think of it pretty much the way, what do we do at our homes, right? We buy a door lock, we lock the windows, we don't leave, hopefully we don't leave the key under the doormat, right? No one solution is going to protect you. The only way you can get protected is don't be connected to the net. Right? Like that's really the only way, right? And even still, if you have a computer and it has data and you have it in a room, now you got to lock that room, right? It becomes physical, right? So the defense in depth is a very well and established set of principles, and what Secret Server does is add that layer of protection and control, and most importantly, auditing. Okay, because that's a big component right here. You can lock your passwords up, but can I audit and see who did what when?
And if again, if a user walks out the door, do you know everything they had access to? Do you know the credentials that they know? Yeah. If you're keeping them all in a spreadsheet or something like that, they can have a copy of that spreadsheet, and they have they can go, maybe they can't get into your environment because you changed your Active Directory, but what about all your web portal sites and all that, your SSL certs and social media accounts, as we said, all those things? Did they know any of those? They could make a bad day for your company if they do and get into some of those things.
And one big misnomer that folks have, and we've seen this several times, a lot of folks focus on encryption, and encryption does one set of layered of protection, right, on the data. But if my credentials are compromised and I am an authorized user to that data, the encryption doesn't matter. I'm authorized to see it. All right, so a lot of folks think, well, it's encrypted. Okay, that's great in one aspect, in one dimension. But in the other is now I got to protect the people who have access to that encryption, to that data, and can see it unencrypted. So you got to layer it, and I think that I know for a fact, having used Secret Server, that it takes you orders of magnitude closer to being more secure.
We do have one more question. Do you have the ability to rotate passwords?
Absolutely. So again, like where I was showing the checkout capability, at the end of that checkout period, we can rotate those. So again, for the most part, stuff that we can hit with an SSH console capability, we can do those. So that could be, your virtual hosts underneath, switches, routers, firewalls, servers, Active Directory, all those kinds of things. So in a situation where we can mask the passwords and never show them to users, that's less of a concern. But even with that, maybe you want to have a regular rotation of those, and maybe for compliance reasons you have to. Maybe you want to rotate those all your switch and router passwords and all every 30 days or 60 or 90 days, something like that. Just so if the bad guys are beating on you and they're getting closer, they've got 10 of the 12 figured out or something, boom, it's changed and now they're not even that close. So yeah, we definitely have that capability to either do it on a time period, or if we're doing a checkout of passwords at the end of that checkout period, we can have it rotate at that point as well.
Great. Okay, well, I'd like to remind everyone once again that, this privilege access identity management solution that we're offering is not just a tech solution. It's not only for the tech team, line of business owners, stakeholders. This is something that you definitely want to take a look at. It's something that you definitely want to get more of your questions answered, because it will certainly meet a lot of your compliance needs and help you sleep a lot better at night. I know it helps me sleep a lot better. So with that, we will be ending this webinar. I encourage you to please reach out to us and contact us for more information. We'd love to engage you on not only your PAM solution and your PAM strategy, but on all your IT needs. So thank you so much on behalf of Dave Kaufman and George Estrada.
Thanks for your time today.